Good morning, everyone. I'm Lauren Conlin. As you can see, I'm not alone. The Sarge is back. Who is excited, you guys? Hey, Joe.
Hey Lauren, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm great. Everybody, you should all know Joe Giacalone, aka the Sarge, creator of True Crime with the Sarge, an amazing YouTube channel. Joe was formerly with the NYPD. I've learned so much from Joe over the last few years. I can't even tell you, but Joe, just for those who might not be familiar, can you let us know what you did when you were at the NYPD and what you did after that, and just a little bit more about your channel, just very quickly for anyone new?
Sure. Sure. I retired from New York City Police Department in 2012 as a sergeant, what they call SDS, which is Supervisor Detective Squad. And I've been an adjunct professor for over 20 years at John Jay College. And I've written a couple of books, the Cold Case Handbook in its second edition, the Criminal Investigation Function, which is in its fourth edition. And then, like I said, so True Crime with the Sarge is my new venture out here. I had to take a number of months off for
Mm.
family obligations, but where everything seems to be going well now, so we're back, and it's good to see you again, Lauren.
I'm so excited. I mean, I did see you the other weekend in the Hamptons for the Who Done It, which was really fun, and we can talk about that. It was just a funny. I mean, I shouldn't say funny because it wasn't. It's not funny the things we talk about, but it was a funny night in general. There's a lot of little things, little quirks that happened. But Joe, right? I mean, there's like I don't know. I mean, that was the night that I got the news about Angie Solomon. I was like driving in the rain, and I was trying to like have you guys tell me what to do, and it was just it was a dramatic night. But you, I mean, you seem to kill it when you're there. Like everybody loves you. Everyone loves what you talk about. You were talking about Gilgo Beach, right?
Yeah, we did a segment on Gilgo Beach, and then for Friday mornings and Saturday mornings, I had the coffee and crime with the Sarge, and we hung out at the one of the facilities that they had, and we had coffee, and we just sit and chat, and it was great because people could just come and ask any question they want. It wasn't a specific topic, so you get to know people, get to interact with people, and that's what I like doing.
Yeah, and apparently I missed one of the better nights, Saturday night. There was just some funny things that happened. I won't go into it, but apparently there was a dramatic scene at this dinner that I got a call from Cheryl and Lisa, and I heard you were very funny about it. I heard somebody left the table and she said something funny, and you were like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, when you get together with people, you never know what to expect from strangers and that kind of thing. And
Yes.
listen, it doesn't take away from the actual event because it was not even part of the event. And listen, the Hamptons who've done it. If you live out on Long Island or New York City or in the tri-state area, it'll be next April. It's usually the week before Easter. It's a great opportunity to come out there because just about the same people you could see at Crime Con or some of these other big festivals. And it's a much smaller venue. You can sit and you can talk, and it's not like that rushing from scene to scene as you are in Crime Con. But I've been a Crime Con speaker, I think, 4 times. That's always a
Oh,
lot of fun too. Yeah.
yeah, you're right. So the who done it is like you're sitting with your favorite detective, content creator, death investigator, Joe Scott Morgan. It's
Yeah.
great. It really is. But Joe, all right, we're gonna do this in the style of roll call. I forget, I think it was Dizzy maybe or somebody who had said, when Joe took a hiatus, we were really missing that roll call where we just kind of bang through a bunch of cases, trials, whatever. But before we jumped on, Joe and I were discussing Virginia Giuffre. Giuffre, you're supposed to say it like that. I'm not going to pretend to have a French accent. I really can't. But, when she passed away, very sad. I personally wasn't shocked. Many of you know I'm always here for a good conspiracy. I'm always here for a good celebrity conspiracy. But right away, when people started saying it wasn't suicide, it was murder, I was like, no, I don't think that's the case. And when she had written that Instagram post about the accident with the bus and that she had 4 days to live, but she didn't want to bore anybody, I had a few people analyze that statement and they're like, it's riddled with depression. And that was another tell. But Joe, you are an expert in this field. I mean, you dealt with this a lot in the NYPD, suicide notes, suicides that were murders. What was your initial thought here? And what do you think about her death?
Well, like many people, I wasn't surprised by the bad news there. So, I mean,
Mm.
when you're dealing with a situation where you have this woman who has just been through so much, I mean, and then on top of that, getting hit by a bus and everything else that goes along with it. But from the investigative standpoint, you have to go into the scene and you treat every death as if it's suspicious until proven otherwise. You can't have that mentality. Well, this is all these things have befallen this individual, and she has tried to do this in the past. So it's a definite, right? You can't have those blinders on when you're doing an investigation. So you go in and you take the proper steps. You take your photographs, you interview people, you do your scene investigation. If there's anything that stands out to you, if you think something might be evidence. So we don't know the exact cause of death, right? This is another thing that drives people like me crazy, and Joe Scott Morgan will tell you too. The cause of death wasn't the suicide. That's a matter of death. Suicide
Yeah.
is a matter of death. There are only five of them: natural, accident, suicide, homicide, undetermined. The cause of death is what makes the manner of death happen. So we don't know if it's I'll guess probably, some sort of pills or something else, because
Yeah.
well, statistics show too that females who do this tend to be their preferred method. So that's what I'll just go out there. I have no idea, right? Because even if you just Google cause of death for her, it says the other word. You can't keep on saying it because YouTube will get crazy.
Oh, okay.
So
I don't even know that. Thank you for telling me because I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
that's yeah, well, that's a word that they flag. So
got it.
the
I
issue
don't
that comes down unalive herself, right?
yeah.
So the issue that comes down with, if you have a proper scene investigation and you do everything you have to do, you can come up with a final explanation, because one thing that we've learned, Lauren, from doing these shows and talking to people, and the word conspiracy creates clicks, and unfortunately even our what we call regular media or traditional media or legacy media, I mean, they throw that word around, but I do not think that's the case in this situation.
No, I don't either. I don't think it is. And there is a note that she left, and many are calling it on a live note, but it is not that. And I do have
No.
a short 6-minute video, and I will play it on 1.2, maybe a little bit faster, of this guy. So someone in the UK sent it to me. His name is Paul Mayerday. He owns a company called Truth Unlocked Statement Analysis. He studied under Peter Hyatt, and he said this is a great analysis of her note, what it is, and just Virginia in general. And just so everybody knows what this note said, it said, quote, mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers need to show the battle lines are drawn and stand together to fight for the future of victims. Is protesting the answer? I don't know, but we've got to start somewhere.
Right.
So yeah, what do you think of
Well,
that, first of all?
it's a call to action for what it sounds like, but it also could, we don't know the exact time that was written, when it was written, and that's not a note, right? It's not a note they're purporting it to be in the media, meaning it's not the final message. And I could tell you from experience, and they also have research on this,
Yeah.
having a note is very rare. Which means if there is a note, you really question it with a skeptical eye. Yeah, something like, I think the research shows about one in every four cases that you have a note.
Oh,
So
wow.
75% of the time, there's no note. So the issue that comes down to is, if there is one, investigators should be really careful about that, which means you take the note, you secure it, you get a question document lab, you get similar writings that she had, that it's a known sample from her, and then you have it tested and see if that's the whole thing. Like, if it's written on a pad, you take the whole pad, because like we saw in John Benet Ramsey case, right? You take the entire pad, because indentations, you can find out other things that were written on there. So that's we have to be really careful with that kind of stuff. And I tell you, the speculation and stuff, even from the regular media, is got to be even more devastating for the family. I mean, this family has gone through so much already. I just wish that they would just back off
Yeah,
here.
no, I was actually surprised at some of the people that were reposting her 2019 tweet about not wanting to
Yeah.
unalive herself, that I mean, I was shocked at the media figures. It was like, who did I see? I mean, I saw like Maria Bartiromo from Fox Business, and she's like a serious journalist, and I'm Nancy Mace. I was shocked. I was like, why are you guys perpetuating this? That's it's questionable here that you, I mean, a lot changes in 6 years. And again, from what we've seen of her, she really does seem like she was crying out for help, in my opinion. I mean, I will just say it. And back to what you said, this always brings me about the, you know, I don't know, that suicide notes are very rare, but this always brings me back to Sandra Birchmore and the fact that, you know, she didn't leave a note, but she was such a talker. She didn't, you know, do all the things that she normally did. And it was so strange. And then the fact that, you know, you had mentioned statistically, many women, they take pills. They don't do what was it, a lanyard around a doorknob? I mean, God, it's just like all these things. But yeah, that just totally brought me back to that. But I'll play this
Well,
video. Yeah, go ahead.
before you put the video on, would be more important for me from the investigative standpoint is talking to the family in regards to how she was acting before this event even happened. Was she happy? You know, was she look like she was turning a corner? Because that's usually an indication that something bad's going to happen.
Okay.
When somebody has
Yeah,
already tried this in the past, and all
yeah,
of a sudden now they turn around and all the family and friends are like, "Oh, great, they're on the mend, they're look good," and then all of a sudden it happens. Then they say, "What?" Because what happens is the person finally comes to grips that this is what they're going to do, and all of a sudden all that fear, all that anxiety just leaves, and they just become the person that everybody wants them to be, and everybody kind of just goes along with it. But that is a huge red flag.
I didn't even know that. That's insane. So
Yeah.
you're saying if they kind of start to
Well,
get, they appear to get better, like,
well, when you have somebody who's already tried it in the past, so when somebody's already tried it in the past, and then
yeah,
all of a sudden, you know, and they're depressed or they're on medications and the family knows and they're dealing with this, and then all of a sudden it makes them look like they do a 180. We tell people that is a huge red flag, because and then it usually happens because the person has come to grips with their decision and they're okay with it. And the family and everybody else and the friends disregard it because they think that, hey, everything must be working. The meds are working, or she's getting the help she needs. And
yeah.
yeah, if you talk to any psychologist or whatever, they'll tell you the same thing. But you know, remember we interviewed I don't know how many people, you know, how many family members and friends, you know, when these events happen, when you're, you know, from the police standpoint, and you hear
Yeah.
the same story over and over again. Things were going great. We don't understand why this happened, and then it dawns on you.
That's so interesting. I didn't realize that, but that makes so much sense. Oh my gosh. Yeah. All right, let's get this guy up here for a few. I might skip through some of it, but like I said, it's a pretty easy watch. I'm just gonna tell me, guys, if this is a little bit too fast for you. You
Well, it won't
guys,
be too fast for me because that's
yeah, no, same. I know, and same here because this I listen to everything at like I'll do 1.3. Okay, here we go.
It's a provocative headline, isn't it? Was Virginia Giuffre murdered? It's one appearing in a few tabloids at the moment and conspiracy-leaning corners of the internet. And its question seems to echo those asked after the deaths of Jeffrey Epstein and others connected to his criminal network. But we must ask, is this a serious question or simply another hollow echo of internet paranoia? And if we look carefully, not just at the question itself, but at the very human story behind it, I think the answer has to be that she was not murdered. This is about a person who was seriously troubled. And maybe we have to ask why she was so troubled and who is responsible for that. Virginia Giuffre was not just a name in court filing. She was the mother of three, an outspoken survivor of trafficking, and arguably the most significant public voice in the exposure of Jeffrey Epstein's network. It was her courage, accusing both Epstein and Prince Andrew, that forced the world to pay attention. And she stood up when others were silent. She sued Epstein, she sued the Duke of York, and she became a global symbol for survivor-led justice. She settled out of court with Andrew in 2022, but at what cost to her own peace? Her life, for all its courage, was also marked by pain that had no neat conclusion. And in April 2025, Virginia Giuffre was found dead at her home in Neergabi, Australia. A suicide note has now been made public. It was left behind, heart-wrenching, defiant, and still fighting for survivors' voices to be heard. And the police in Western Australia declared the death not suspicious, no signs of foul play, no shadowy figure fleeing the scene, yet some headlines immediately screamed conspiracy. As they also screamed conspiracy, by the way, about the late Pope's death. Of course, there were oddities. Her previous claim posted online that she had only 4 days to live after a minor car crash, confusion about her hospitalization, but none of these on its own suggest murder. They suggest what they are, symptoms of immense mental anguish. And Virginia is now the third known Epstein accuser to have died, following Carolyn Adriano in 2023 and Lee Syke Patrick in 2017. All were young, all died in circumstances linked to despair, but the patterns of pain do not necessarily prove murder. What they reveal is the brutal aftermath, the brutal afterlife of trauma. And Virginia was a survivor of systemic abuse, objectification, international betrayal, torture, frankly. That she coped as long and as courageously as she did is extraordinary. But the psychological toll of Epstein's empire didn't stop with his death. It continues to claim lives. And part of the problem is the Western obsession with pointing the finger of blame and then not really paying enough attention to the victims who have been so badly hurt. And you can see this situation playing out, for example, in the Horizon Software mess. It's the same story, I'm afraid.
I don't know that one.
We don't pay attention to the victims. We gloss over that bit because we think the problem is solved once we've found the person who is responsible for the problem. But actually, people's lives have been changed by this suffering. Whatever it is, really, people's lives are changed by the misery of the suffering that they have endured. They can't go back to what they had before. It doesn't matter how much money they're offered. It doesn't matter how many people go to prison because of what they did. The victims themselves have been changed. And we haven't dealt with that as a society. The notion that Virginia Giuffre was assassinated by some shadowy royal hit squad, for example, is frankly absurd. Why now? What purpose would it serve? We have to ask the question, cui bono. The damage from their perspective is already done. Her testimony lives in court documents, documentaries, settlements, interviews, headlines. What is worth asking is who failed her? Who allowed the machinery of abuse to run for decades unchecked? What structures remain unchallenged in courts, media, even royal circles that might still silence others like her? It's not a mystery thriller. It's a tragedy of mental health compounded by legal pressure, public scrutiny, and perhaps exhaustion in the face of a world that applauded her fight but did little to carry the weight that she was carrying, to carry that weight with her. Who failed her? We failed her. We failed her. Who allowed the machinery of abuse to run for decades unchecked? That abuse continues after the actual crimes have been even uncovered, because the victim is still feeling hurt. The victim is still suffering flashbacks. The victim is still barely able to control the experience of the past. We control the past. We have a court case. We point the finger of blame. And then we ignore the victims. That is our problem. That is the problem of Western justice. Virginia Giuffre was not a conspiracy. She was a person, and now she's gone. And we owe her more than feverish headlines and baseless speculation. We owe her clarity, honesty, and above all, a commitment to continuing the fight that she never gave up on, even when it broke her. So instead of whispering nonsense about assassins, let's say her name with respect. Let's honor her story. Let's ensure the systems that failed her, and so many like her, are never again allowed to flourish in silence. And let's make sure that we start to put systems in place to really help the victims.
Wow. I like that guy. I gotta see, his name is Professor Tim Wilson. I don't know who he is, but I found that video to be really wonderful. Professor Tim Wilson on YouTube. So I don't know I probably should have figured out his background, but literally I woke up right before we did this live, and I got this video, and I was like, oh my gosh, I started to watch it, and I was like, I think this will be perfect. So yeah, I'll look this guy up before. But what did you think about that? I agree with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, listen, he was very succinct, and he was, he's a knowledgeable guy. He could tell. I don't know exact background, but I'm sure it is somewhere within this field. But here's the other problem with this case now. I mean, to expect others to come forward and deal with the same kind of influence from the media, the social media, and everything else that goes along with it, and then they see what happened to Virginia. I think it turns off a lot of people. Just like we've seen in investigations where you have assaults against females, and and you have this is the same situation over and over again. Are people going to come forward because they usually get what's the word I'm looking for? They usually get victimized by the justice system again. And this is the glaring case for that, and that has to change.
No, I agree with you. And that's where I get, oh, well, hold on. Let me pull up. This is his Instagram I found. It's like he's a politician, public figure. His YouTube, he has almost 200,000 subscribers. So he seems to be yeah, pretty well versed. But no, and this is what makes me feel horrible about, I guess, my view of the Harvey Weinstein retrial is I see things a little bit differently with this, and they're calling it third degree rape. They're calling it coercive sex almost, and so I'm having a hard time, I guess, with that in terms of like what I've been hearing in court, the repeated going back, the I don't want to say the trading of goods, but like, oh, you just did this to me, but now you got me a job, so I'm going to come back. It's weird, Joe, and I listen. I'm not afraid to say what I think. I don't care, or I do care a little bit, but I want it to come out in a nice way or in a diplomatic way. But then I hear things about, Virginia Giuffre. I see what she went through, and it's all different. It's not black and white. There's so many gray areas, and every case is different. But I do feel just guilty, I guess, hearing that, and then just sort of reflecting on what I've said about some of the Weinstein complaining witnesses.
Well, I mean, listen, this is an example of manipulation, domination, and control, right? So John Douglas's, three effects that people have, whether they're serial killers or whatever they are. This is what they enact on people. And Virginia was a very young girl who got involved in this whole thing. And listen, I mean, this happens all the time. This is happening right now as we speak. There's another big case in Manhattan that's coming in that my favorite district attorney who's holding a press conference on. Alvin
Wait,
Bragg's.
which one? Which one?
I don't know all the extent of the entire story, but I was following it with Gizla on Grizzly True Crime yesterday, as
Oh,
catching bits and pieces of it. But yeah, there's another big breaking case that's happening, and
in New York City. I don't even.
right
What
here
is
in Manhattan.
in Manhattan? What, I should know this. What the hell? What breaking case is it? This is gonna drive me crazy. There's too much going on right now. I literally can't keep up, but I should. It's Manhattan. You don't know? Is it a
I
murder?
forgot. I forgot his name because I got thrown off with a couple of other
Oh
stories.
no, I know. I know exactly what you're talking about. Hold on, because my friend who works at Rikers told me that he was really nice. The guy with the glasses, he
Yes.
armed like
Yeah,
seven women. Yep. Hold
yeah.
on.
Well, there's going to be more than 7 women because even Alvin Bragg had asked other women to come forward. So this is like. There's videos, of course, and everything else that like this whole apartment was set up. I think it happened in I'm not gonna say the hotel because I don't know for sure. But
Whoa. Hold
yeah,
on.
I was catching bits and pieces of the live stream yesterday because of it just when you hear New York City, you kind of pique your interest.
Yeah, I gotta find this because guys, this headline is so wild. And so my friend that works at Rikers said he was there and he's in protective custody because
Oh, he
of the
better be. Yeah, he better be.
well, so because so anyway, he said that he was being like, yes, sir, no, sir, to my friend who is a CO. And he was like, wow, this guy's like really pleasant. And then he said he went into like the next trailer and
He's a lawyer.
he's a lawyer. Okay. So one of the other guys is like, yo, do you know what that guy did? And my friend's like, wait, what? No. And then he said, I got to find this so everyone knows what we're talking about. Dizzy, where are you? I need you to find this. Hold on. Lawyer, NYC. Okay, here it is. Attorney raped, tortured women for hours at his Sadistic R's of Women. This is bad. Oh, yeah, that's him. Oh my gosh. Hold on. This is crazy. I should be all
Yeah.
over this. Hold on.
Yes, you should be because this is happening right in your neighborhood.
I know. Okay, this is him right here. And yeah, that's why my friend was like,
Ryan Hemphill. That's it.
Yeah. Let me see. What is this called? So I can just make a headline really quick. This is so nuts. Yeah. So it says his apartment near the Empire State Building had lots of surveillance cameras, and investigators had allegedly recovered images showing dozens, if not hundreds, of other women naked and blindfolded. Holy crap. His name is Ryan Hemphill. Oh my gosh, what a sicko.
Well, you to get a good primer on this, like I said, Gizela, Grizzly True Crime, did a whole show on this yesterday. Like I said, I was caught bits and pieces of it, but this guy is going to have and I actually had mentioned that in the chat. I said he's going to have a very terrible time at Rikers Island,
Oh.
and
Hmm.
yeah, because
Well,
if you just read this abuse, this is another one off the charts kind of situation.
oh my gosh. Okay, I'll go through it. A private equity executive turned his NYC apartment into a torture chamber of grotesque sexual violence. Manhattan prosecutors said Thursday. I just got chills that this was happening like 40 blocks from me. Okay.
Well, listen, when you have a district attorney like Alvin Bragg who comes out and he actually, like I said, I'm not a big fan of his, but
Neither am I.
he seemed to be handling this case exactly how it should be handling, and he didn't say it, but he intimated that there are a lot more victims in this, and he wants people to come forward. So hopefully that they take advantage of that and contact the district attorney's office in New York City, because this is a crazy story.
Oh my God, 116 count indictment. Okay.
Yes,
Says
116 charges against this guy.
Yes, it says the 43-year-old, oh my gosh, he looks a little older, is accused of raping 6 women over 5 months in a depraved rampage, which he punched, waterboarded, and
Tortured people.
shocked victims with a cattle prod, and kept recordings of the assaults as trophies. Oh my gosh. Ryan Hemphill, who remains jailed after his arrest last month, pled not guilty to 116 indictment, charging him with predatory SA and other crimes dating to last October. Hemphill, who is also a lawyer, threatened to have victims arrested or disappeared in a bid to keep them silent. The defendant told these survivors he was untouchable. The indictment makes that clear. He was wrong. He sat quietly oh my gosh. If convicted, he could spend the rest of his life in prison. He was previously acquitted in 2015 of choking and holding a knife to his ex-girlfriend's throat after testifying that he enjoyed strangling her during sex. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, which brings you back to another New York City case, remember, with
Robert
what was
Chambers.
it? Robert Chambers, yeah. And that was that defense, yeah.
Yeah. And what's really, I don't even know what I was talking about the other day, but I brought this up because he re-victimized Jennifer Levin all over again, saying she wanted rough sex, which we all know she didn't. She dies. He murders her. He gets a deal. He's out in like 8 years. What does he do? He reoffends with drug charge. He just got out again. I think it was 2 years ago. It disgusts me, this guy, Robert Chambers. But this one says his apartment was outfitted with numerous surveillance cameras, dozens, not hundreds, of women naked, blindfolded. Investigators found hundreds of bullets, high-capacity magazines, and a large amount of drugs, including heroin, cocaine, amphetamines, fentanyl. Oh, my gosh. He met these women through websites, including some that specialize in sugar daddy arrangements. Oh, so oh, God. He offered them a lot of money. Yeah.
Well, it's not unusual. We've seen this act before, but this one here is with all the other stuff that's going on, people would say, oh, like who would still do this stuff? Well, here you go, Ryan Hemphill.
Wait, okay, I have to say something. Wait, I don't know why I just said that. I have to say something. I'm talking this whole time. It says the arraignment happened down the hall from disgraced movie mogul Harvey Weinstein's grape retrial. If this was yesterday, yeah.
It was, yeah.
Wait, okay. So I have questions. I don't know if you saw this really quick. I tweeted this, but 7 people were taken out of Manhattan criminal court yesterday because of a toxic powder that they found. Now, I was trying to find more info about this. It was really tough. There was like one article. I texted Harvey's attorneys because I wasn't in court yesterday. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? And they're like, so we didn't see this happen, but we went out the back door. They were out the front door with on stretchers around maybe 5 o'clock. I'm not sure. But I did find out that the powder came from the 12th floor. Joe, do you remember Manhattan Criminal Court? The 12th floor is where they have the Rikers inmates held before they go. Yeah. But this guy, he wouldn't be held there because Harvey's not held there. Harvey's on their protective custody. That's crazy. Like, I just kept
Yeah.
thinking somebody from Rikers probably brought this powder in, right? On purpose. If I had to guess, I'm speculating to target somebody or something. Wouldn't you think?
Well, we'll have to see exactly how that plays out because I haven't been following that story. But listen, nothing could shock me anymore, Lauren. If you told me there was a pink elephant in the lobby, I'd be like, okay, let's go see it. You know. So, I mean,
Oh
that's
my
that's where
God.
I am at life right now. Yeah.
Wait, this is so nice. I don't know. This is so, so kind. Retired cop and now fellow YouTuber. Fun channel. Keep up the great work. I would love to have you on. That's so nice. Retired
Hey,
cop,
Drew.
Joe, your boy. Love it. Thank you so much,
Yes,
Drew.
Drew.
You're so kind. Love it. But yeah, I gotta stay on top of this guy now. I'm so scared.
Yeah, this is a big case. Yeah.
I'm petrified. I can't believe that this just reminds me of like Dahmer and just shit from the 80s and 90s that we haven't heard of in a really long time, Joe.
Well, I mean, listen, we're living it through all these cases now. I mean, with Rex Heuermann and
Yep.
you got the Idaho 4 case going on. You just had the excuse me, you just had the Indiana case. So I mean, there's lots of crazy stuff. Listen, you're not going to unfortunately escape any of this. It's not going to be like, oh, tomorrow there's going to be nobody to talk about. Unfortunately, I wish all the stuff would just stop and we can all go back to doing our regular lives instead of talking about this.
I know. My God. I
But
mean, this is so I will be on top of that. He's giving a press conference today. Great. I have like so much crap to do today. Because this is just side note. I
homework
am
assignment.
No, I'm going out of town to my parents' house, but many of you guys know my parents do live 45 minutes from Mass. So I'm going to be making a stop over probably to Dedham tomorrow to Karen
Oh
Reed
boy.
right around lunchtime. I'm going to go back to 34 Fairview because last time I was there, I was trying to explain like I didn't have a YouTube channel. I only had like an audio podcast and I didn't really have anywhere to like put a video or take pictures. But what I would love to do this time is take a video just to show everybody, in my opinion, why I found it weird that the homeowners never came out of the house because it's not as big. The lawn's not as big as everyone thinks it is. And also you can kind of see with the driveway, like if you're backing out of the driveway, why it could be a little weird to not see a large 6-foot man there. You know what I mean? Like so I just want to sort of get that, on camera. I feel really awkward. I feel like I'm going to be like intruding. I don't want to get,
You won't be the
arrested.
only one there, I'm sure. I'm sure there'll be other
No.
people doing the same exact thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So no.
that's I've just caught bits and pieces of Karen Reed 2.0. But if you recall, we were talking about this on roll call. Remember, we were doing this, and I had said after this is over, I never want to talk about this case again. I don't care what they do, because to me, between prosecution and the police department, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the burden is always on the prosecution and the cops to build a prosecutable case, and it didn't happen. Even if you think, I don't care if you think she's guilty or she's innocent, the justice system works in a certain way. And,
Mm.
and if they don't do their jobs right, then this is what you get. This is what happens. So, that's oh God, yeah. Talk about toxic cases. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
geez.
No, I know. Wait, let me see. It's a short lawn. Okay, right. So, Joe, if you didn't watch the opening statement, it was really interesting because what Hank did is he really painted this picture of what Karen did deliberately. Like it was, and I didn't like that. Like I guess I know, what I know. So the jury probably didn't really, they probably were like, whoa, that's really messed up if she did that. But I was like, dude, you're messing this up. I don't think that's what happened. But he's like, John gets out of the car. She deliberately, pulls up 35 feet, puts it in neutral. Like this is all very deliberate for like a semi-drunk person, I would say. Puts it in neutral and then accelerates in reverse, 75% acceleration. And then like, yeah. And I'm like, I just don't see that. And nobody, it's like, again, we're not talking about this mansion with like, that's blocked off with a gate. And no, I think somebody would hear that, or especially people coming in and out of the house. It's just, I don't know. I think that's why it is so important to obviously go there if you're investigating the case. But my other thing was, Joe, the jury doesn't know any of the homeowners didn't come out. these people, they left, but they didn't see a body. They don't know any of this yet. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you think that'll be as effective for them?
That's what we think they don't know, right? I mean, just because they picked 12 people who couldn't get out of jury duty, that doesn't mean that they didn't know that all this stuff has already happened. I mean, everyone knows about this case, everywhere from here to Canarsie. So the issue that comes down to is that I had made a statement, I think, at the end of this, that they should not try her again because there was so many prosecution problems. There was so many law enforcement problems. I mean, I don't remember. I think it was Trooper Paul. Maybe he the accident reconstructionist guy, right? I mean,
Correct.
and then of course Proctor. And I'm going to toot our horn here, Lauren. I had said back then, and I got a lot of grief for that they were going to fire this guy. Oh my God, yeah, they were going to fire this guy. And people say, no, they're not, the whole corrupt system. I said, listen, when the governor comes out and says, we're investigating this. And then I also remember saying the head of the state police in every state only works at the behest of the governor. So the message was, dude, you better do something about this. And now you have your investigating officer fired. You had all of this bad publicity and all this other stuff going out.
Yep.
And now you're going to retry this person? Yeah, no, that was a bad move as far as I'm concerned. Take your loss and move on.
I think it's an embarrassing. I think it's an embarrassing murder case. I'm shocked.
Should have never been murder. Yeah, I think should have never been murder. We
discussed this. I get shit for that too. I don't care. It is. It's embarrassing for the Commonwealth to put all these resources to get Karen behind bars like she is a Whitey Bulger. Like she is literally Whitey Bulger. Honestly, that's the way they're kind of treating this. And I feel like a lot of it is almost retaliation for the quote unquote celebrity that she's become, which she has said, I don't want this. I would go back to my life in a second, but it is what it is. So, here we are. But it is funny, Joe, you and I went back and forth about Proctor last summer. I mean, you said it. You're like, he's going to get fired. And what's their case going to be? And it's just interesting that, when he did get fired, I texted you and we were talking about something, I don't even know. And I was like, how will they move forward with this case? And you're like, I don't know. It's a shit case now.
Yeah.
And right.
It was a bad case before. I mean, It was a bad case when it opened up. What opened up is, when you had the uniform cop on there, nobody took control of the scene. Nobody did anything that they're supposed to do. I understand it was snowing and this and that and the other thing. You didn't have the crime scene. You didn't have the crime scene unit come out. I mean, all the other things that happened in there. When law enforcement screws up this thing, it's impossible to recover from. And the district attorney, the first one, Lolly, there, he was serving up his witnesses, whatever. And from what I heard here, because I said I've stayed away from it, but from what I heard here too, like he said, this new DA served up a couple of his witnesses too. It's just at a certain point, like I said, you're going to have to accept your losses and just move on. But the issue that comes down to is, here we are.
They won't. Massachusetts won't. And Drew, this opinion is actually not. I don't think it's unpopular at all. He says, maybe unpopular, but I don't think her being not guilty is definitive proof of a corrupt cover-up. There could be a different explanation. I mean, like I said, I haven't been shy about this. I get confused about the quote unquote conspiracy. I don't think it's as elaborate as people might make it out to be. I do think that people of Massachusetts have dealt with a lot of corruption. So in their minds, this is not very far-fetched that a cop would do, or I guess I should say Proctor would, they wouldn't plant pieces of a taillight or whatever. They're thinking, no, this stuff has happened before. As far as the people in the house and all that stuff, I do get tripped up a bit about their motive. And you know what I mean? That's where I'm like, I have a hard time with all of it. But I think maybe it was Linda Bodden, maybe, who said something like this. I don't remember what she said, or somebody said it, but just about what if he did just trip outside the house and they maybe found him and they're like, oh, this looks bad. Or I don't know. I could speculate forever, but it's just
Well, listen, there is a big difference between incompetence and cover up. So,
yeah,
I mean, I've said that from the beginning too. There's no denying it because people will pull out the receipts. And I said that, uh, and I said, I go, This wasn't a cover up. This was like sheer incompetence just from watching how this investigation played out. Did they try to cover their tracks in how bad the investigation was? Well, we can argue that, but
sure. Yeah,
Ben Franklin's famous quote, three people could keep a secret as long as two of them are dead. I mean, when you're dealing with a situation, especially in policing, where people are going to lose their livelihoods, their
yeah,
everything else that goes along with it. People talk about that blue wall of silence. And like, listen, when people are faced with losing all that, they start talking. And we haven't seen that yet. And even with Proctor getting fired, we still haven't seen that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
listen, we'll wait to see what happens. You know what? We'll talk about this after the after the verdict gets done, because
Oh my
this is
God,
just yeah,
I know, and
this is just like
I love
it's a
what you said here, because, and also what Joe said, because it's like, look, I think the police work did start off very shoddy, right? The solo
oh
cups,
god, yeah.
slower, the stop and shop bags. And then you've got Proctor, who really, via text, we saw there was no investigation. The guy's house is a Boston cop. I'm not going in there. Maybe Proctor saw that this was a shitty investigation. So he did need to get these taillight pieces just to ensure that, well, we know what happened. We just gotta make sure. And again, I'm speculating here, just talking through this, but it could have evolved just through Proctor. And then the people that are saying, oh, just because he talks some shit to his buddies, it doesn't mean that he's, well, all right, if you want to defend Proctor, that's totally fine. That's on you. But I just personally wouldn't at this point, because of him, right? The Commonwealth's case is just that much weaker. I mean, like
Yeah.
80% weaker, let's say. I don't know if you agree, but yeah.
Yeah, and they lost the first time around too, because a hung jury's a loss. So the issue that comes down to is, I said it when it was over. I said I don't think they should bring this case back again.
No,
Makes
and
everybody look bad.
yeah, and I guess I have been really confused. I it's just really weird about the double jeopardy stuff, because I do feel like if the Commonwealth wanted a win, right, or a conviction, they would have just gone for the manslaughter, right? Or the I think what is it, under the influence manslaughter, whatever that charge is. I
Well,
just feel like that's more, I mean,
well, I mean, the question that comes the question that comes out to is that, what would you charge somebody who was drunk, who hit somebody in the street and killed them? What would you charge him? You wouldn't charge him with murder.
yeah.
So, I mean, why didn't they charge him with vehicular manslaughter or under the influence? I don't know the exact statute. I'm
Well,
sure
I
somebody's
mean, they added
Googling
the
right
grand
now.
jury.
But yeah, but the issue that comes down to is that I thought they overcharged. And listen, that is never a good thing.
Yeah. No, the grand jury added the second-degree murder charge after the text messages and the voicemails came out. And yeah, I mean, again, I still sitting through Guarino sharing those text messages, and everyone's like, oh, this is so bad. It makes Karen look awful. And I'm like, oh God, do you guys not fight with your spouse? Like, I mean, these people definitely, in this small town, they drink a lot. They have, so alcohol, I'm sure, fuels their fights. But God, has no one else fought with their significant other? I mean, how would you like it up there on the big screen, read by some,
Well,
like,
here's a quote that I included in my book. Right, never text or post anything that you wouldn't want your mother, your boss, or a lawyer to see. It's as simple as that.
yeah. And I feel like I know that in my head, Joe, but I would still be so embarrassed if people saw my text messages. Like, I would literally die. It would not be good. And let me see. So yeah, and just as far as like the witnesses go, Joe, I mean, we heard yesterday that Jen McCabe, she spoke to the feds, and we got to hear the words "the feds" on the stand, basically. But then it comes out that she forgot to tell the feds everything. So they left, and she needed them. Her husband was like, well, you got to call them back. And she kind of said, yeah. And then she called a bunch of people in between. which was a little weird. I don't really understand
Yeah,
that.
like I said, I didn't see her testimony. I didn't follow because it's just like, oh my God, yeah, I can't take these people anymore.
I
So,
know, I know. Yeah, sorry. People are saying forgot. Yeah, drop what you think, Dizzy. I'm interested in and MJ Afton. What did you think yesterday when she said that about the feds? Because I thought that was one of the more interesting pieces of information that came out on the stand. And also, Joe, if you see Jennifer McCabe this time around, she is much calmer. She is much softer. She's not being sassy to Alan Jackson. She's being very demure. Like it's almost like she had media training, but she didn't. I mean, he asked her. He was like, "Yeah." MJ says drugs. Yeah, big fat Xanax before you're on the stand. Yeah. You should see her though, Joe. They even lightened her hair. Like it's interesting. She had an epiphany. Okay. She's proved she's a big fat liar. I just can't. This is God.
yeah, like I
So
said, I
there's
didn't see the testimony on purpose.
no,
So,
I know. Well, and then if you saw the other day, I think the biggest thing was Robert Alessi got Ian Whiffen to admit that he actually got him to say the words reasonable doubt about his own conclusions about John not going in the house. So that was really interesting. And yeah, Afton said she's better prepped this time. And I would have to say, you guys, if I was a juror, I don't necessarily think she would come off that badly. Just her attitude and her, because Alan Jackson, you can tell he's trying to rattle her and she is keeping it together. But you can't deny the witnesses, some weird shit going on between all of their, distancing, the guy. There's a man lying in the snow. I'll never get over that. But yeah. But Joe, let's move over to Gilgo Beach. Can you just give us a quick update on what happened last week with Peaches?
sure.
And that was huge. I need to follow that a little bit more. But
Yeah, huge news, and then we had even more potential huge news. So make sure I get back to
yeah.
Asian male doe. So make sure I circle back before I forget.
Yes.
So yeah, there were 3 unidentified human remains left. You had Peaches, her daughter, and Asian male doe. And
Yeah.
last week, Nassau County Police Department held a presser. Absent Suffolk County representative, which I was a little like, I don't know why that was all about, because her daughter is clearly in Suffolk County. A lot of people say, why is Nassau County running with this now? Just quickly, because unfortunately, Peaches, Tanya Denise Jackson, her remains were found in 2 locations in Nassau County. So her body, her homicide case is Nassau County's jurisdiction. Her daughter was found in Suffolk County. So there's the tie-in for that kind of thing. So we have a jurisdictional issue here, and that could be the reason why Suffolk County wasn't there. Suffolk County distanced themselves, or whatever it is, from this. I don't know that you can read into that any way you want. And everybody's running with that. But the issue that got down to is we actually know who they are. Now they did say something in the presser that has really kind of resonated with me, because they said it a couple of times. They kept on talking about her black Geo Storm, which was the vehicle that she was driving at the time. And
Okay.
initially, I'm saying, like, what's the investigative purpose of this? What does her car have to do with it? It could be the fact that she met up with whoever caused her demise. And
Yeah.
then maybe this individual used that car, or where was this car found, or if they even found the car, right? There's lots of different things going on there, but that car does play a significant role in this case. And I'm hoping against hope, because her case, and I've said this many times, her remains, the initial remains at Hempstead Lake State Park in a town called Lakeview, was in a Rubbermaid container, and there was a towel and a pillowcase. Sorry,
Yeah.
and it was, and it was inside this thing. So the chances of having hair follicles or some other type of trace evidence or transfer evidence, to me, was out of all cases, this was the one because it was enclosed. It was kept in, away from the elements and everything else that goes along with it. And one thing that we have seen, both Nassar and Suffolk on these old cases, they did great job with the crime scenes back then and saved these little
Yeah.
pieces of evidence. So you had this, degraded hair follicles in some of these cases, like Valerie Mack and Jessica Taylor, and then all of a sudden they're able to bring these cases back to life with the new labs, and that's what the Fry hearing is all about. These labs. But
Mm.
it's a now you know who your victim is. Now you can go about trying to identify how she fell into whatever situation she fell into, and
How
which they
old
didn't
was
allude to.
how old was the daughter? Did they
Two, yeah, about two.
Oh, what a monster. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Oh my god. So, and forgive my ignorance on this case, but do they think that Rex Hewerman, she's a victim of Rex Hewerman or
Well, they
no?
they refused to name any suspects at the time, but
Okay.
the you know coincidence, which I don't believe in, right? Connection to Gilgo.
Yeah.
I mean, her remains were found, like I said, partially in Hempstead Lake State Park, and then it was the other remains. Her hands and her feet were found at near the Jones Beach Monument,
Okay.
and
And then
then her baby was found at the very end. And if you heard Josh and I talk about this, Josh had mentioned that they act as bookends because Baby
oh,
Doe, yeah, Tatiana, her name is now Tatiana Dykes, was the furthest east case, and Peaches is the furthest west case on
wow.
Gilgo, on that strip of Ocean Parkway. Everyone just calls it Gilgo. It's not always named Gilgo, but
Okay.
listen, all of the remains except for one body of Shannon Gilbert's were found on the north side of Ocean Parkway, which all that means to me is that the individual who was responsible for this came down the
Yeah.
Sunken Meadow Parkway, got onto Ocean Parkway going west, and then got back up the Wantor Parkway right to Massapequa Park, because Rex, we know, has been charged with 7 of these cases. So we know where the suspect lives. We know where these victims come from, and that would be
Yeah.
the likely travel route.
So then
There's only
Pokemon,
one.
yeah.
Yeah,
So Asian Joe is the only one that has not been identified yet.
right. The Asian male doe who was found in women's clothing, as it was described. Uh,
Mm.
Afram entered the chat though, because Gisela put out a tweet, said, about the Asian male doe, and
Yeah.
he's the last one. And Afram said it's only a matter of time. They responded to her tweet.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that was huge
Okay.
because Othram was involved in identifying Karen Vagata. And Karen Vagata's, yeah, some of her remains were found at Davis State Park in Fire Island, which isn't part of Gilgo, but her other remains were found on Gilgo. So Othram has entered the chat on this, so maybe they're working on Asian male doe case, and that would be huge because once again, you have to, from an investigation standpoint, you have to know who your victim is, because then you could try to trace back. Now you could talk to their friends and their families and their coworkers and everybody else that goes along with it, and say, what were they doing the 48 hours before they disappeared? When was the last time you spoke to them? So all this stuff is extremely important when you identify the person. And just remember, folks, anything you hear from the police is already 6 months or more old. So they knew Peach's identity 2 years ago.
That's
So
wild.
so
Wait, that
yeah.
is such a good point. Anything that the police is announcing to you that you think is so fresh is not fresh. They've known.
Oh, it's ancient
Known.
history as far as investigative timelines.
Wow. And and this, I feel like, again, this is another one of those cases. I'm not necessarily local. I'm way more local than most people. This is still like a good 2-hour drive from me. But I always have trouble with it, Joe, because I feel like, I mean, and again, like I don't know enough about each case, but I feel like they don't all connect back to Rex, right? Because there's like Shannon Gilbert, we don't think Rex killed Shannon Gilbert, right? She was
I
running and she was screaming, and right? I just don't
the
know.
Shannon Gilbert case is an outlier in respect that she was the only one that came with a driver. She came with, we know who she was there to make this transaction with. We know so much about this. And no, I do not believe that he is a suspect in that case.
No.
Did something terrible befall Shannon Gilbert? Probably, right? So, there's been a lot of, we don't, once again, we don't know all the details on that. But me personally, I don't believe she's part of that investigation. But because of her is the reason why we uncovered all of these things, and that's
Right.
where people want to make that connection, which is fine because think about this: without Shannon Gilbert's case, you don't have this investigation that goes on. So the issue
Right.
that comes down to is you have a suspect for 7, and then from you just keep on working the case because you have a suspect, and that's the thing. And if you have DNA, even better, because then we'll but there are a lot of working parts here. You got a John Petroff issue. You got a lot of things happening because well, just quickly for those, Sandra Castilla, who was added to the indictment, was originally thought to be a victim of John Bitroff, and public statements made by Tom Spoda that was the same MO, the same everything else, but we don't have the evidence on this one. So that we're going to hear all about that, of course, once the trial starts.
And when is the trial supposed to start for that?
Well, they don't have a date on it, but I was hoping that it was going to start in July. But this Fry hearing has gone on a lot longer than I thought, because the Fry hearing is about the admissibility of the new technology using to identify through the DNA.
Okay.
And so we're probably looking at a fall start now.
Are you going to attend that trial?
I'm going to try to. I
Yeah.
mean, it's going to be a circus the first couple of days. You probably won't get near it. But I think if
Okay.
you're going to go as an observer, I think, 2 or 3 days into it would probably be better. The first day is just going to be it's going to be a zoo.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. No, I need to get back into that. I get it's a lot. And I do have this direct connect to Ray Tierney, which I'm like, I want to use this connect, but I don't want to waste it. So I want to make sure I'm completely up to speed and before reaching out and trying to speak with him and everything. But I was also paying attention to, and many people in the chat know, the young girl who her name was Emma. I mean, her name was already out there, but Emma Ray Gervasi. This is also Suffolk County, but there was 20 people arrested for grape S trafficking. Her dad had all the tattoos, but I don't know if you saw this or caught wind of it, but the dad just gave me these really awful vibes. He made a YouTube channel when his daughter was missing, seemed like he was doing it for all the wrong reasons. And I was kind of waiting for him to get arrested on some kind of child neglect charge. He was also a porn star, amateur, had a Pornhub account. I thought maybe he was the reason his daughter was in a lot of these situations, and he still hasn't been arrested. So I don't know. But do you know what I'm
Well,
talking
I
about?
know the case. Yeah, of course. I mean, that case. Let's put it this way: there's a lot more to the story that we don't know, and
Totally.
yeah, and
Totally.
I have a feeling that because I remember they originally they arrested 8, and then it was 11, and then it was so the list keeps on growing. So
Yeah.
one thing that I've learned about District Attorney Ray Tierney is that he's very calculated. He will, if the evidence is there, he's going to make those arrests. So in the
Yeah.
respect of any case, and I know everyone brings up Asa, Hiraman, and why isn't she arrested? The same thing. If there's evidence, listen, he's not going to shy away from it. So, and
Yeah.
at this far into the game, if the evidence isn't there yet, with all the hundreds, I mean, this guy had 500. Talking about Rex again, he's got 500 electronic devices. He's got all. If they haven't had the evidence already to arrest other people, then it doesn't exist at this point. So the issue that comes down to is that they have their man per se, and they're going to go with it and see how many they can attach with them. Now, Sheila had a good question and said, "Why did the law enforcement
Oh
wait so
yeah.
long?" You had it up there.
Yeah.
Because, well, I can't speak for every New York department, but we never released the identity of a victim until we had a next of kin notification. So yes, the DNA hits and all the other stuff. They build the tree through investigative genetic genealogy. Yeah, we can narrow it down that this is the person, but if you come out with it publicly and it's not, then it's a
Yeah.
big embarrassment, and you also then really make an issue for your case. So until somebody can be identified as the next of kin, and in this case, they found the husband. So it was like one of those.
Oh, they did? They found Tanya's husband?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Well,
See, that's really
not
cool.
husband, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it's her husband, but the baby's father. So
Wow.
yeah,
Oh,
he lives in Florida apparently. So the issue that comes down to is, I guess, once they identified him and did their own investigations, kind of thing, then I think that's why they came out with it. But that would be a good reason for the delay, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize that. And Simi, I think we are all on the same page.
Yeah, it'll come. I have a couple of live shows scheduled, in the evenings and on Sundays.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm keeping with my Sunday shows because
Okay.
everyone seems to like the Sunday show. But the Tuesday shows will be coming back this week coming up, and a roll call will return at least once a week going forward. But I'm getting my sea legs. I'm getting
No,
my sea legs. Yeah.
it's the best. I'm up. I wake up early anyway. So it was just so great starting my morning with you with coffee, talking about all these cases, shooting this shit. It literally is the best. And like I said, Dizzy was like, oh, we miss a show like that where you just bang through cases and it's just, oh yes, that's true. No, we love. Yes, we do love it. We really do love it because there's so much to talk about right now, Joe. I mean, I personally feel like there's so much going on trial-wise, case-wise. I'm having a hard time keeping up with all of it in my head. So
Well, yeah, I
yeah.
think in the fall we're going to end up with both Kohlberger and Heuermann. So that's going to be
Oh
that's
yeah.
going to be yeah, that'll probably happen around the same time. But
Kohlberger's
I'm going to probably stick with Rex because that's the case that I've been following since the beginning, and of course, it happened in basically in my backyard. So
yeah.
but the Idaho case is still on the front burner with me because I've made my public comments about how I thought that the crime scene was mishandled and a lot of different things, and I think we're going to hear that in the trial for sure.
Oh, definitely. And I love this comment, Sinead. Joe grounds us all. I could not agree more. Joe, you are just like this voice of reason, and you are like literally the comfort. I don't know how to describe it. Do you guys know what I'm talking about when someone is just very familiar and has this? I mean, this is why you were such a great, or one of the reasons I should say, you were such a great cop, a great sergeant, because you do have this way of making us just feel better and comforted, and you're very sensical, I guess. Why all of a sudden can I not talk? I yap all the time and all of a sudden I can't find the words because I feel weird because I'm an awkward person sometimes and I'm trying to pay a compliment and it's just not working.
No, thank you. Yes.
But yes, okay, thank you, Karen. Calm and reassuring. Okay, this too, safe. You make us feel safe. That's what it is, Joe. You've got a calming and safe effect on everybody, really. And yes,
Good.
also, Drew, you said something else. Luigi and yeah, we were talking about Kohlberger, but Luigi, God, I don't know when that's going to start. Do you think that's fall?
No, but that's a different animal altogether because that's going to be the feds. So that's going to be a lot less of a circus.
He got state first, I thought, or maybe I don't know.
Yeah, I think the feds. Yeah, well, they might have the state, whatever, but the feds they're going to end up taking this whole thing over, I think, and dealing with that.
Wait, and MJ said Diddy next week, even though we can't watch it. So Monday morning, jury selection starts for Diddy, and I think I will be going down there. I think as of right now for Nancy Grace and doing it out there. So that should be wild. And Joe, I think you have to go because I think you have a Nancy recording.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing Nancy Grace. Yep. So you can check me out later on.
Amazing. I love it. Well, give everybody on Nancy my best. And Joe, this was so amazing.
It was fun. Yeah, that hour went by so quick.
Doesn't it go by so fast? It goes by so fast. I can't take it. And I'm so happy for our new friend, Drew. So I saw Drew has a channel. Everybody go follow Drew as well. What Say Drew Breezy, another ex-cop. We love cops. We back the blue. Unless you're in Canton or MSP. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh boy.
I'm not kidding. But anyway, yeah, I'm so funny. Well, Joe, we love you so much. And everyone in the chat, I love you guys. I will talk to everyone later and I'm going to go find that presser today. That sick lawyer book. All right. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a great show. Come up.
Bye, guys. See you later.
Bye.